Hello, my name is Daniel Bader, and this is a digital presentation of my case study called Missed Opportunity: The Failure of the United Methodist Church's One Church Plan. A little bit about this presentation. First, we'll talk about the organizational structure of the United Methodist Church. Then I will discuss a summary of the issue before us, mainly LGBT rights in the United Methodist Church. I will discuss all the aspects of that issue, give you a conclusion, and then we'll look forward a little bit into what the implications of their current decision may be. First, the organization of the United Methodist Church. The church has no figurehead or leader like the Catholic Church would have the Pope and others. It instead refers to itself as a connectional organization. Churches are part of local districts, and local districts are part of regional conferences. Regional conferences are part of central conferences. For example, where I work, St. Stephen United Methodist Church, it's part of the Charlotte Metro District. That district is part of the Western North Carolina Conference, which is led by a bishop who is elected by the lay and clergy delegates to the central conferences. The Western North Carolina Conference meets annually. This is where clergy are assigned to churches and conversations about issues related to the conference are debated. About the global church. The global church is a representative democracy made up of three bodies: the Council of Bishops, the General Assembly, and the Judicial Council. The Council of Bishops offers spiritual guidance to the church. The General Assembly is made up of delegates from around the world and as the main decision-making body of the church. They meet at a minimum of every 4 years, and it is this body that decides on the changes to the Book of Discipline, which is the guiding document for how the church operates. And then the Judicial Council is somewhat of a Supreme Court. They decide if the actions of the General Conference are permitted per the organization's constitution and the Book of Discipline. The organization of the church is important for this case study because it's the United Methodist Church as a concept is what Arnett and all describe as a dwelling place. The Book of Discipline sets out its communicative practices and lays out what is good and what is not good, all which are characteristics of the organizational communication ethics theory. The church is a good example of an institution because it meets the authors of our textbook's definition of a legal and publicly recognized structure that permits us to understand the identity of a given organization, offering a place of connection around publicly recognized types of work. Deciding on a good. In 2016, advocates for LGBTQ inclusion introduced legislation that would force the church to make a decision to acknowledge gay clergy and perform same-sex marriages. The General Conference in 2016 founded the Commission on a Way Forward that would study the issue for 3 years and bring back a suggestion on how to proceed. In February 2019, the General Conference held a special session to consider 3 proposals from the Commission. The traditional plan reaffirms the current understanding and relationship between the church and the gay community. The One Church plan would maintain the institution of the church, yet allow each organizational church individually to decide how it felt about the issue of gay clergy and and if it would perform same-sex marriages without penalizing people that chose not to and churches that chose not to. There was another plan called the Connectional Conference Plan put forward by the Commission on the Way Forward that was a detailed restructuring of the church along these lines and was largely dismissed from the conference as being too complicated and was actually subsumed by the simple plan, which was advanced by another group that would simply just eliminate all language regarding human sexuality from the Book of Discipline. The General Assembly voted during the special session 47 to 53 for the traditional plan, which reaffirmed the church's stance against acceptance of gay marriage, gay relationships, and gay clergy. And it also strengthened penalties for those who go against those teachings. It reaffirmed that it was incompatible with Christian teaching. So what's happening? The disagreement involves the community of memory in the church. The community of memory is, according to our authors, the social conscience and the understanding of what the community believes is good. The community of memory as the conscience can and must change to circumstances within the organization. Intercultural differences can also play a part. Particularly the African members of the church point to their own culture's rejection and in some cases the illegality of the homosexual lifestyle as a reason the church should not change. There's also a conflict in the church between postmodernism and modernism. Conservatives in the organization are modernist and have and represent one community of memory, believing in the long-standing prohibition of gay marriage and rejection of homosexuality as a Christian ethic, and they point to the Bible to give them validity. Progressives in the organization also point to the Bible, but believe in a postmodern relativistic understanding of right and wrong, and an understanding that can change over time. The cultural shift towards acceptance of gay marriage and gay in the United States has a lot to do with this change in the church's understanding, or at least the progressives' understanding of gay marriage. The decision that the General Assembly reached was ethically arrived at, given the organizational communication ethics. Because the Methodist Church is a Republican body, the democratically arrived at this decision. Members and groups can promote legislation to change the rules. The organization is ruled by a body of bylaws that are arrived at democratically and are open to debate and revision. The process of deciding on the inclusion or exclusion of members in terms of its stance towards the gay community was deliberated according to these rules and set forth in the Book of Discipline. In other words, it was arrived at fairly given the rules that the organization has. If viewed from the theory of organizational communication ethics, it's hard to argue that the issue was not decided ethically. Still, the organization was in fact split nearly in two on the determination, and leads me to question whether it's just and ethical that an organization could be split in half by just a small majority. I believe there's a better way to address this issue. Reverend Adam Hamilton summed it up in the argument on the floor of the General Assembly when he said, "Yes, it's going to be defeated, that's clear, but this is the one opportunity to say we care enough to listen for a moment." He was espousing a more dialogic theory of communication ethics. Even if they did not carry the majority, discussing it and working through their problems may have led to a better outcome for this particular special session and its after effects. Had the issue been approached as Reverend Hamilton wished it had, I believe that it's likely that the one church plan would have prevailed. The one church plan would have allowed each individual church to choose whether to allow gay clergy and gay marriage. The church would have had an internal split, and it might have caused some chaos at the local level. But I believe in the end that Methodists of one ilk would have gone to a Methodist church that they preferred, and likewise people from those conservative or liberal churches would have gone to another local church that more believed in what they believed. So that would have preserved the United Methodist Church as an institution. More importantly, though, for our purposes, the one church plan would have allowed for continued dialogue, and mutual respect would have remained. That would have preserved the coordinates of dialogue, ensured the survival of the institution, and addressed the concerns of all members as they redefine the dwelling place in this historical moment. Looking to the future, the denomination is likely to cleave, but may come back together in time as modernists and postmodernists grow in their understandings. If a dialogic approach had been used, I believe that institution would have been preserved, and that understanding may have been reached in time. I also believe that the things that the two sides agree on outweigh the things they disagree on. That on this one issue, understanding would have been reached with time. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for bearing with me in the kind of heavy organizational information about this church. I think it's an important issue in our world today, and I think that they provide great examples of the dialogic theory of communication and the organizational communication ethic.